Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome back to the history of the Dice Tower. As we go through the different years, we're going back now to 2019. So 2018 was a year of go to all sorts of conventions. And one of the things I didn't mention about 2018, but it's a pretty big deal, is I brought on Lindsay Friend as a marketing manager. She was recommended to me, and I thought, okay, I want to make the Dice Tower. I want to grow the Dice Tower. I'm going to need someone to help out. Y'all don't know Lindsay very well. She's almost never on stream. She's been on stream a few times. But she has grown the Dice Tower to where it's at today. And she helped me because we run a Kickstarter every year that helps bring in the funds for the Dice Tower. But the Dice Tower needs more funds than that. And we really do. If you notice, we have 8 employees and all kinds of stuff. Doing the math, there's not a lot of money going around. And we want to do advertising and live plays and things like that. But to set all that stuff up, we need somebody to coordinate that. We need someone to run all that. And Lindsay does that and in spades, gets these things together. I did not realize going into 2019 that it would be the last year for conventions for a while at all. And so we went to UK Games Expo, had a fantastic time, but that's the last time we've been there. We went to Midgard in Iceland again. That's the last time we were there. We went to Gen Con, but we did go back to Gen Con in 21 and 22. But, you know, we didn't know what 2020 was going to be. And 2019 was my launch pad, sort of, and I was trying to change things. There was some big things that happened. For me, on a personal level, it was my 20th anniversary. And I got invited to ConCon, a convention in China. And so I brought my wife with me, and we made it into our 20th anniversary trip. We don't take many trips, but hey, we now had 19-year-old child and other teenagers at home, and they were able to say goodbye to us for a week, and that was a blast. But also I got to go over to China and see all kinds of things there and see what the board game scene is like in China. The Dice Tower cruise was a big deal, went well. And our live playthroughs began. Now, this was definitely a transition year. 2020 helped us make live stuff better. 2019, we were still working with it. Trying to, again, I told you we had this big rig, very expensive machine that ran live stream. In fact, it was made by the live stream company. And just getting that to work right and have things go, and there's so many different wires and buttons. And I'll tell you what, live streaming, we had a lot of problems and things, but we tried to get those worked out. Always constantly things going on. And then, so in 2019 and 2018, Derek had left. And Derek, his strength was certainly audio. And so we missed that a bit, but we had 2 video editors come in. We had Roy, who's still with us now with his enthusiasm. And then just for part of 2019, we had Chris Barr, who, really great guy behind the scenes, sarcastic and funny, but you never saw him up front. You might have seen him do the show. He ran a game show one time for us where we had to guess if Joseph Stalin, Ted Bundy, or Stephen Bonneker had said a statement, and that was a kind of a funny game show. He just had a very sarcastic sense of humor, but for various reasons and things that just were out of control, he wasn't able to stay with us beyond 2019, which is, and I'll come back to that, but at the end of 2019, I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to bring on another video editor probably. So all that stuff was going on. And we had a fantastic Kickstarter at the beginning of the year that went really well. And we were getting these live playthroughs up and going. We were just getting live stuff. When I went back and looked, there was lots of live things going on. We had our shows going on. We started, earlier than this, we had started crowd surfing, but crowd surfing became big in 2019. And I was kind of mind boggled by that because I've always kind of resisted the Dice Tower becoming too much of a beacon of the future. I want us to look at what's here and now. And I stand by that to this day. I say I would like, take us toe to toe with other channels, and we spend a majority of our time looking at games that are out now or about to be out now. But people still want to know what's coming out, and crowd surfing has become one of our popular shows. It started with just me, and then I think I added Z, and then Sam, and that became a very popular thing. We also tried some other video series that were went pretty well, but have disappeared over the years. We did Dice Tower Dives, which is where we would dive deep into a game and talk about that game, talk about the designer, talk about the expansions. Those were a lot of work. The people have asked for us to bring those back. I might someday, but there's a lot going on in those. We did Testing Tuesdays, which we still do now. Now we call it We'll Play It Live. That's our new name for that series. But the idea of us just playing games live, which allowed you to both to watch games being played live and allowed us to also play games, which is part of our job. We did Back Talks, where I did a Tom Thanks every week in Board Game Breakfast, and I thought, well, why am I just being the only one to talk about these subjects? And so other people would come on, and mostly Sam and Z, and those became a thing, Back Talks, which eventually turned into Snack Talk as a joke one time. And then we did a few Snack Talks before people got mad at us eating on camera. So the Dice Tower cruise went off, but if you watch my last video about 2018, this Dice Tower Con thing was on the horizon. And I already told you, Dice Tower Convention, that I wanted to have more of a say involved in it, and Cool Stuff owned it, and they were just going to let it disappear as a company. So I was going to take over in that regard. And so Cool Stuff did not want anyone to say anything about it, didn't tell anyone about it, so people didn't find out about it till some of the people involved found out about it right before Dice Tower Con. And a lot of this happened in the meantime. Dice Tower West had its first thing. And while it wasn't like the best convention ever, it was really exciting. MeepleCon had been running in a kind of a rundown casino called the Cannery, and we moved to the Westgate, which isn't amazing, but it was pretty good. And it was a really good con. We used the MeepleCon library, but I brought in a whole bunch of hot games. There was a lot of people there. It was exciting. It was just fun. And it was a great time had by everybody there. And I was like, all right, this is it. This is the future of the Dice Tower. We had some retreats. We're going to try to run more retreats. The cruise seems to be doing well. I'm going to take over Dice Tower East, and hopefully that will bring in some things. I might, if I can get these conventions running, the revenue from the conventions, I won't have to run a Kickstarter anymore. The conventions will be the thing. The conventions are the future. This is Tom Vasel from 2019. So moving to Dice Tower East, so we had Dice Tower Con, and it went well. It wasn't, I don't think it was as amazing as 2018 Dice Tower Con, but it went well. Meanwhile, we were trying to figure out what to do, where to go. We had been told that the Carib was impossible to work with. So we were like, all right, well, I guess we'll find another hotel. And we found a hotel and everything. We announced all the changes, and that kind of fell apart pretty quickly. I hired Sharon Madden. She was in my game group, but very good with administrative skills to run Dice Tower East. And she has, since then, done a very, very good job. But we were not expecting the feedback. Now, I guess we should have, because people didn't know anything. And there was like a Dice Tower Con. People were like, well, why is it changing? And of course, most people just assumed that Dice Tower Con had been mine this whole time. It had not been. So with Cool Stuff pulling out of it, and the person running it, Patrick Havert, and me, we have different visions as to what to do. So he went and started his own con called Escape Winter Con, which is still running today. It's a regional Florida con that seems to be very well attended. People seem to have a great time there. But I was going to run Dice Tower East, and we got a lot of negative feedback on that, but we're like, we're going to build this up from the ground. I have my library that I'm going to build. I have a new staff. We didn't want there to be any negativity, but there was a lot of negativity on the internet about this, and people were reading into it, making stories, and I was trying to be as, diplomatic as possible, but we wanted this to go well. But we were, as 2019 went on, I said, we're making plans, we're at this new hotel, seems like everything's going to go well, and we were just getting ready for that to go off. I, at this point, started realizing that I was pushing myself to a degree that was not sustainable. Whenever I find that things get too much, I would bring more people on, and it's like, all right, I am not editing anymore. I bought a video editor. Oh, I'm still editing. I bring another video editor on. Okay, well, I needed to help marketing, and yet I just found myself getting too busy, so we had to make some cuts. We went to too many cons in 2018, so in 2019, I made the tough choice of cutting Origins out of our schedule. It's very similar to Gen Con. And a lot of the same audience went back and forth. And I didn't want to necessarily cut from Origins. In fact, I think I sent a couple people there to check it out. But I couldn't go to everything. I pulled out of Dice Tower Tonight, the show I was doing with Eric and Crystal, and allowed them to do that. And some shows I just decided not to do. There was things, I had to sit down and say, where are we? I need to assess what the Dice Tower is doing. Reviews. We're doing reviews. We're doing our most successful shows. Board Game Breakfast, Crowd Surfing. We're doing those top 10s. But what else? I would try new things to see how they worked all the time. And so Dice Tower East was a big change, and we were prepping for that. But then the biggest change came to the Dice Tower for sure, because I had mentioned in 2018, Derek left as an editor, and we still get to see him at cons and everything, but him leaving and Roy coming on, there was transitional there, but Roy did a great job, and most people didn't notice that. Chris came as a video editor, Chris Barr, and then left, and again, people didn't notice that. But then Sam decided to leave. That's a much bigger deal, folks. And if you were around in 2019, you definitely know that. So there's a lot of different things that Sam needed to move to Washington. And at that time, I didn't think it was very sustainable. We needed everyone to be in the studio to work together. So he wasn't going to be able to stay with the Dice Tower per se, but he put out the feelers, found a job with a company with Mythic Games. He's no longer with Mythic Games, but at the time, he found a job with them. And then we announced it, and oh no, the Dice Tower will never be the same. Now, I get it. Me, Sam, and Z definitely had a great rapport in those videos, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, well, we've got to be able to go through these changes. Nothing lasts forever. These things are going to be here, and it was very amicable. Of course, we had to read on the internet all these very weird, strange reasons. I mean, as of me recording this and as of me posting it, I'm at Dice Tower West right now, and Sam's going to be there. He's our special guest. We're going to hopefully hang out a bit. And so we're getting along, but, of course, people like to read into things and get it. But it was a tough thing, and I was like, well, what do we do from here? Because, we had Roy, we had Chris, but there was just something about me, Sam, and Z. And I said, you know what? We're not even going to try to recreate that. Chris left. I needed another video editor, and so I put out the thing again. Hey, I needed another video editor. I get tons of responses to these things, and I got one from somebody who had helped us at, who was a contributor on our channel and had helped us out at different conventions. That was Mike DeLisio. Now, I knew Mike DeLisio was a really hard worker at Gen Con, and I knew his solo segments were popular, and he was friends with Dan Hughes, and did some segments with him, and they had their own podcast. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Okay, we'll try it. And I talked to Mike, and I said, listen, Mike, you're going to be compared to Sam, but we're just going to avoid that by, we're not making you Sam. Okay, you're not going to be the next Sam. You're going to be your own person. So Mike came on at the very end of the year. We went to PAX Unplugged. He was there and helped us, or he missed PAX Unplugged. I think he started right before PAX Unplugged. But either way, he was there, and he came on, and folks, it was like a glove. He just came in and fit in perfectly. Got along with everybody. I think it's fair to say, and no disrespect to anyone at the Dice Tower, but of all the Dice Tower people here in the Dice Tower studio, he's loved the most. Everyone loves Mike. And yeah, at first we definitely got I miss Sam, I miss Sam, I miss Sam. But, and this is still 2019, but over the next few years, obviously, while people still miss Sam, people like Mike. So all that's going on. Meanwhile, I ran the second Dice Tower retreat. Now, I told you, the first one I ran in a very small hotel that was very close to my house. It was very convenient. I was like, why not? Did not get a good contract with them, did not want to re-sign with them. So we signed our second retreat at the Miccosukee Casino and Resort. It's the only casino in the Miami area, really. Well, the Hard Rock up in Broward. But so we have this Indian casino that we went to, and with the Miccosukee tribe. And so we went there, and it was bigger, more grandiose, smoky casino. But it worked well. And at that con, and you can see it in the Dice Tower library, you can see, in the Dice Tower videos, you can see us building the library. That is where the library got built. And we did a video of it. Took several hours. We built all the shelves. We put the games on those shelves. I organized them. Now, I've reorganized it multiple times, but that initial organization happened there, and that became the Dice Tower library. And then starting at that point, I mean, that September of 2019 is where the current Dice Tower library that I speak so highly of started. It was my personal collection, and then we just started adding game after game after game to it. I went down and hunted the games I thought should be in it, to the point now where there's almost no game not in the library that I think should be in the library, other than new games that haven't been out yet. So that was our last big hurrah kind of with Sam. We announced this at that point, and Mike was coming. We did a 24-hour marathon at the Dice Tower Studios. We had been going up the cool stuff, but this was the point around where we kind of, in 2020, the separation from us and cool stuff was complete. Again, that wasn't anything negative about it. We just were separate from them, especially since we were no longer doing the convention together. And so we kind of split that way, but then we said, well, can we do the 24-hour marathon in our own studios? We tried it, and it worked. One thing that did not happen in 2019 was the top 100 games of all time, because I was getting tired of doing it at the end of the year, and I wanted to do it at the beginning of the year during the Kickstarter. So I said, we'll just push it a couple months, and that's all we did. But if you look at the years, like there's a Dice Tower Tom Vasel top 100 in 2020 and 2018, so it looks like we skipped the year, and in reality we didn't. We just moved a couple months, but just like Phineas Fogg, that can change a lot of things going on. So 19 was a good year, but it was a reorganizational year. We were sad to see Chris and Sam leave. We were happy to bring on Roy, and we were happy to bring on Mike. So we had Roy and Mike, and me and Z and Kenny. That was our main studio. And then we had Lindsay Friend in doing marketing, and then we had Sharon getting Dice Tower East ready for its big launch in 2020. And I said 2020 is the year. It's going to be the biggest Dice Tower West yet. It's going to be a big Dice Tower East. We're going to have the Dice Tower Retreat again and the Dice Tower Cruise. 2020, a new decade. Well, this is not really a spoiler. You're watching this post-2020. But next time I'll talk about 2020 and how 2020 was shockingly a pretty good year for the Dice Tower. Yeah, sort of. You know what I mean. Anyway, that's the year 2019 in Dice Tower history. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time.